The night always feels honest to people who are quietly in love. When the world finally becomes silent and distractions fade away, when nobody is there to see how strong they pretend to be during the day, the truth they keep hidden slowly rises to the surface. And somewhere tonight, while you are trying to move on, trying to stay occupied, trying to convince yourself that certain feelings are only imagination, someone younger than you is thinking about you again. Not in a casual or passing way, but in a way that keeps coming back no matter how much they try to push it away. They replay your voice in their mind more often than they admit to anyone. They remember small details about you that others would never notice at all. The way your energy shifts when you are tired, the way your silence feels heavier than your words, and that strange, calm presence you carry, even when you are quietly struggling inside. And what confuses them the most is that they never expected to feel something this deep for someone like you. Especially not someone who can see through people so easily and naturally. Because this connection never started from surface attraction. And that is exactly why it keeps returning to them at night, when everything is quiet. There is something emotionally overwhelming about being understood by someone who carries emotional maturity. Younger souls often do not realize how starved they are for emotional safety until they meet someone who has depth without even trying. Most people they met before were loud, inconsistent, performative, emotionally unstable, chasing attention, or afraid of real emotional closeness. But then they met you, and something inside them became still for the first time in a long while. Not because you were perfect, but because your presence felt real. And realness has become rare in today's world. The strange part is they never planned to fall into this emotional attachment. In fact, a part of them resisted it. They may have pulled away at times, acted distant, cold, confused, or unavailable on purpose. But emotional distance does not always mean emotional absence. Sometimes it simply means the feelings became too strong to understand or control. Especially for someone younger who is still learning their own emotional world. You need to understand something important about human psychology here. People are not haunted by connections that are easy. They are haunted by connections that awaken something unfinished inside them. And you awaken something inside this person that they were not prepared for at all. Maybe it was your calm, emotional presence that pulled them in. Maybe it was the quiet pain in your eyes that you never fully explained to anyone. Maybe it was the mix of strength and sadness you carry without complaining. Or maybe it was the fact that around you, they felt emotionally exposed without even trying. If you have ever had someone younger become emotionally attached like this, you already know how confusing it can feel. That kind of emotional exposure can be scary for them because they often mistake deep emotion for temporary excitement. But what they feel for you is not temporary. It is not the loud kind of attraction that disappears after a few weeks. It is the quiet kind, the kind that slowly enters their subconscious until your presence starts appearing in their normal, everyday moments without permission. They think about you late at night when everything is calm. They think about you in crowded rooms when everything suddenly feels emotionally empty. They think about you when they are talking to someone attractive, but still comparing the emotional feeling to what they experienced with you. And sometimes they dislike themselves for it, because no matter how much they try to move forward, your presence keeps returning. There is a psychological truth here that thinkers like Carl Jung pointed toward. People are drawn to those who activate hidden parts of their unconscious mind. Age does not always control emotional gravity. A younger person can become deeply attached to someone older because that older person represents emotional safety, wisdom, grounding, healing, or depth that they have been searching for without knowing it. But this is where it becomes complicated for them. They may not know how to express these emotions clearly, so their feelings show up in indirect ways. Long, silent staring, Jealousy they pretend they do not feel. Sudden distance followed by sudden return. Watching your social media without interacting. Remembering small things you said casually. Emotional tension they cannot explain logically because what they feel exists deeper than words can explain. And every night, when their defenses lower, the truth returns again without fail. There is another reason this attachment becomes stronger over time. If you ever wondered why, it is often because you did not chase them like others did. You did not force yourself into their space. You did not beg for attention or validation. And strangely, emotional control like that creates curiosity in people who are used to emotional chaos. Your calmness made them question you. Your silence made them think more. Your emotional depth made them feel both safe and exposed at the same time. And being emotionally exposed is powerful for someone who is used to hiding their feelings. What hurts them most is realizing they were affected by you without you even trying. That kind of impact is stronger than anything intentional. You reached parts of them that others never could. And now, even when they distract themselves with other people, conversations, work, entertainment, or temporary connections, something inside them still returns to you. It happens suddenly. A song reminds them of you. A phrase brings back something you once said. A moment of loneliness brings your face into their mind without warning. And in the quiet of night, when everything becomes honest again, they admit something they rarely say out loud. No one has ever made me feel like this before. That realization changes a person, especially someone younger who is still learning the difference between attraction and emotional connection. Attraction excites the surface for a short time, but emotional connection stays deeper. And once someone experiences that kind of emotional recognition with you, other connections start feeling incomplete. That is why they think about you before they sleep, not just because of attraction, but because something in their inner world became emotionally attached to you. And maybe the hardest part is that they may never say it openly. Younger people often fear vulnerability more than loneliness. They fear rejection, embarrassment, and losing control of their emotions. So they stay silent. But silence does not remove attachment. It strengthens it. The mind becomes attached to what it cannot resolve. And unresolved emotion becomes strongest at night when there are no distractions left. That is why they replay conversations with you. That is why they imagine finally telling you the truth. That is why they wonder if you feel the same connection in some way too. And if you are reading this right now and feel something strange inside your chest, there is a reason for that. Part of you already sensed it. Intuition is often the mind recognizing emotional energy before logic can explain it. Sometimes you feel drawn to someone without knowing why. Sometimes you think about them at the exact moment they think about you. Sometimes their emotional presence stays with you even when they are not physically near. Human beings are far more emotionally connected beneath the surface than most realize, especially when feelings are unspoken for a long time. And there is one more truth that is often ignored. Younger people are often drawn to older souls because older souls carry emotional scars that quietly reflect strength, depth, and understanding. Pain changes people in deeply profound ways over long years of life. Loneliness also reshapes people in very deep and lasting ways. Emotional survival changes a person forever in many situations. And when someone younger meets a person who has gone through deep suffering but still manages to stay emotionally kind, it affects them in a very powerful and unforgettable way. Because kindness after pain feels something sacred and extremely rare to them. Comment attached if this feels like someone younger is silently and intensely obsessed with you in a quiet, emotional way. Maybe they sense how much you hide emotionally from the outside world every day. Maybe they notice the loneliness you never openly talk about with anyone. Maybe they recognize that behind your strength there is a deep exhaustion that you carry in silence without showing it. And strangely, instead of pushing them away, it pulls them even closer in ways that are unexpected and hard to explain. Not in a shallow or surface-level way, but in a deep soul recognition kind of feeling that seems real to them. That is why they cannot stop thinking about you at night when everything becomes silent and still. Because your existence emotionally interrupted their normal patterns of thinking and feeling in life. You became emotionally meaningful in a world where most things feel temporary, empty, and shallow to them. And once someone emotionally meaningful enters a person's subconscious mind, forgetting them becomes almost impossible over time. Still, this connection may also confuse you deeply, because sometimes they appear emotionally distant right after moments of emotional closeness. Sometimes their actions seem to completely contradict their feelings without any clear reason. Sometimes their silence feels painfully loud and heavy in your mind, and this contradiction can make you question yourself emotionally during very difficult moments. You may wonder whether you imagined the entire connection, but you did not imagine it at all. Emotionally immature people often retreat when feelings become too real or too intense for them to handle. Especially younger individuals who have not yet learned how to deal with emotional intensity without running away from it quickly. They fear becoming vulnerable because vulnerability removes their sense of emotional control, and control feels safe to them. But love was never meant to feel completely safe all the time in every moment. Real emotional attachment destabilizes the ego in many different ways. It forces people to confront abandonment wounds, insecurity, fear of rejection, and fear of not being enough all at once in a very direct way. It brings hidden emotional needs they have spent years suppressing back up to the surface. That is why deep connections often create confusion instead of clarity in the beginning stages. And every night this younger person keeps fighting that inner emotional battle silently within themselves. Part of them wants to forget you completely and move on. Part of them cannot let go of you at all, no matter what they try. Part of them wants emotional freedom again, and part of them secretly hopes you still think about them too during your quiet moments. And maybe the reason this story feels painfully personal to you right now is because you have experienced emotional invisibility for a very long time in your life, in different ways. Maybe people admired you on the outside, but never truly understood your emotional depth or inner struggles. Maybe you learned to hide your feelings because life taught you that vulnerability could become dangerous in many situations. Maybe you became emotionally independent, not because you fully wanted to, but because disappointment repeatedly forced you to build emotional walls around yourself. That emotional loneliness changes a person quietly over the years without anyone noticing. It teaches you how to survive without emotional reassurance from others. It teaches you how to remain calm while internally carrying deep emotional pain. It teaches you how to carry entire emotional storms behind a composed face every single day without breaking down. And strangely, the younger person thinking about you every night senses that hidden sadness inside you instinctively, without you ever saying a word. That is why their attachment feels deeper than logic can easily explain. Because emotionally, they are not only attracted to your appearance or personality traits, they are drawn toward your emotional energy, your depth, and your quiet strength. They are drawn toward the parts of you that survived pain without becoming cruel or bitter toward others. They are drawn toward the emotional intelligence you developed through suffering and life challenges. Share this video so others can understand this deep emotional pull from a younger soul. Comment "awakened" if you felt this strange emotional connection with someone younger in your life. They are drawn toward the calmness you carry after disappointment and hardship over time. They are drawn toward the warmth you still manage to offer despite everything life has done to your heart. That kind of energy becomes unforgettable, especially in a generation that feels emotionally exhausted by superficiality and fake connections everywhere. And perhaps this younger person does not fully understand yet that what they are feeling is not weakness at all. It is a form of awakening in their soul. You awakened emotional depth inside them very strongly and unexpectedly. You forced them to confront feelings they previously avoided for a long time. You made them realize that emotional intimacy is far more powerful than temporary excitement ever could be. And once someone experiences that realization, ordinary attraction stops satisfying them in the same emotional way it used to. That is why they keep returning mentally to you at night when the world is quiet. Because your connection became emotionally symbolic for them in their subconscious mind. Safety, meaning, emotional truth, vulnerability, healing, longing, stability, desire, and understanding all exist together in how they perceive you. And symbols become psychologically powerful because the human mind attaches deep emotional meaning to them beyond simple rational explanation. Sometimes they probably stare at your photos longer than they should without even realizing it themselves. Sometimes they type messages and delete them repeatedly before ever sending them. Sometimes they wonder whether reaching out would change everything between you. And sometimes they simply lie awake silently missing someone they are not even sure they fully belong to. That kind of emotional ache is very difficult to escape once it begins. But there is something you must never do after hearing this message. Do not reduce your worth by chasing emotional certainty from someone who is emotionally confused right now. Even if they think about you every night, and even if their feelings are real, emotional truth still requires emotional courage from them. And courage cannot be forced onto anyone at all. People must become ready to face their own hearts honestly in their own time. Your role is not to rescue emotionally unavailable people from their internal struggles. Your role is to remain emotionally aligned with your own worth and value no matter what happens. Because deep down, you already know something very important about connections. Real love should not require you to abandon yourself emotionally in any way. The right connection will eventually move toward honesty instead of endless confusion and doubt. It will move toward emotional clarity instead of constant guessing. It will move toward vulnerability instead of permanent emotional hiding. Still, some connections take time to mature, especially when one's soul is still emotionally growing and learning about themselves. And maybe tonight, while you are listening to these words, that younger person is somewhere staring into darkness, replaying memories of you again and again in their mind. Wondering whether you sense their feelings clearly. Wondering whether your silence means disinterest or emotional caution. Wondering whether fate placed you in their life for a reason larger than temporary attraction alone. Because certain people enter our lives not just to entertain us, but to transform us emotionally in lasting ways. You may never fully realize how deeply you changed them through your presence alone, how much emotional healing your presence accidentally created for them without you even trying. How many nights your memory became both comfort and pain for them at the same time. How often your existence quietly pulled them back from emotional emptiness they were feeling inside. And maybe that is the real reason they think about you every night without fail. Not because you are perfect or because you manipulated them emotionally, not because they are weak, but because something inside them finally felt truly understood when they met you. And human beings never easily forget the people who make them feel emotionally seen, valued, and understood in a real way. So if this message found you tonight at exactly the right moment, do not ignore the strange emotional recognition inside your chest. Some connections arrive quietly without labels, without perfect timing, and without easy explanations. Yet they still leave permanent emotional fingerprints on the soul that never fully fade. Protect your heart always. Trust your intuition fully and never underestimate the emotional impact your presence carries in this world around you. Because somewhere tonight, while the world sleeps, someone younger is still thinking about you. Type "seen" if this message is hitting you harder than you expected tonight. They are still fighting feelings they cannot fully explain to themselves. They are still carrying your energy through the silence of another restless night. And perhaps one day, when fear finally loses against emotional truth, they will stop hiding what their heart has been trying to say all along without fear. Until then, let the silence speak in its own way. And if these words felt strangely personal, if they touched something hidden inside you that you could never fully explain, then you already understand this journey deeper than most people ever will in their entire lives. Stay close to this kind of understanding, because some emotional truths cannot be spoken loudly at all. They must be felt slowly, in silence, one realization at a time, over days and nights. And somewhere in the next story, you may discover another hidden part of yourself, waiting to finally be understood completely. Like this video,